It began like any other day. The morning of August 24th, 79 AD was bright and clear in the Roman city of Pompeii. Street vendors were setting up their stalls, bakers were pulling bread from brick ovens, and children were chasing each other down narrow alleyways. The hum of everyday life filled the air. No one knew the ticking time bomb that loomed just 6 miles away. To the people of Pompeii, it was just a mountain, beautiful, majestic, but quiet. It hadn't erupted in over 1,500 years. There was no word in the local vocabulary for volcano because no one alive had ever seen one erupt. But beneath the surface, pressure was building. Tremors had rattled the area in the days before, but Romans didn't connect them to volcanic activity. They thought it was just Poseidon having a tantrum. And then, just after noon, the mountain exploded. A deafening roar split the air. A column of ash and gas blasted over 20 kilometers into the sky, higher than Mount Everest. Imagine the force, the heat, the noise, the sudden panic. For the next 18 hours, the volcano hurled ash, rock, and toxic gas into the sky. First came pumice, lightweight but deadly. Roofs collapsed, fires broke out, the air became unbreathable. Then came the worst. In the early hours of the next morning, Vesuvius unleashed a series of pyroclastic surges, clouds of superheated gas, ash, and debris that raced down the mountainside at over 100 kilometers an hour. There was no escape. These flows hit Pompeii and nearby towns with temperatures reaching up to 500 degrees Celsius. People were killed instantly, frozen in place, their final moments captured forever in the ash. Some were running, some were sheltering, some were just holding their loved ones. One figure was sitting and praying, while another couple looked like they were simply just trying to be together. After the eruption, Pompeii was buried under more than 20 feet of ash and pumice. Survivors, few and far between, mourned their dead and then had no choice but to move on. The city itself vanished from maps, forgotten for nearly 1,700 years. It wasn't until the 18th century, during construction for a new palace, that workers stumbled upon the ruins. Little by little, the city was uncovered. Streets, temples, frescoes, homes, graffiti scrawled on walls, and even a mosaic of a dog, possibly indicating that a dog lived at that home. Pompeii gives us something no other ancient city does, a complete snapshot of Roman life, caught mid-movement. We've discovered fast food joints with hot food counters, elegant villas with intricate mosaics and garden courtyards, human and animal remains preserved in plaster casts that give chilling detail to their final poses. We've discovered public baths, forums, temples, and we've discovered even a brothel and a brothel menu, which was a series of pictures. So you see, Pompeii was a bustling port city with traders, sailors, and visitors from all over the Roman world who spoke different languages. And pictures made things simple. But in Pompeii, Every room tells a story. Every footprint is real. Every object, from pottery to jewelry, brings us closer to the people who lived, laughed, worked, and died there. Real people. In the end, Pompeii is not just about tragedy, it's about memory. It's about understanding how fragile life can be and how much we can learn from the past. People in Pompeii were just like us. They made to-do lists. They decorated their homes. They enjoyed their family. They worshipped their gods with rituals, offerings, and shrines in their homes and temples. And in one terrible instant, that world was gone. But thanks to volcanic ash and modern archaeology, Pompeii speaks. And it tells us to look closer, live fuller, and never take the ordinary for granted. While Pompeii vanished under a blanket of ash, another city just across the bay kept going. Naples, or as it was known back then, Neapolis, the new city. Now, here's the twist. Neapolis wasn't actually that new. It had been around for centuries. Originally, it was a Greek colony, and then it was absorbed into the Roman Empire. But unlike many cities that were Romanized completely, Neapolis held tightly on to its Greek roots. At the same time that Pompeii was bustling with bathhouses, bakeries, and brothels, Naples was quietly earning a different kind of reputation, a city of thinkers, artists, and poets. The streets of Neapolis echoed with philosophy, not politics. Greek was still spoken in the markets. Theater performances were held in open-air amphitheaters. And Roman elites, people with money and status, actually preferred to vacation in Naples because it was seen as more refined than its lively neighbor. It was also a hub for trade. Ships from across the empire docked in its harbor, unloading wine, olive oil, exotic fabrics, and stories from every corner of the Mediterranean. If you stood at the port of Neapolis in 79 AD, you'd see sailors, merchants, soldiers, and scholars all moving through the same space, a true melting pot. And then, one afternoon, everything changed. The sky darkened, ash drifted across the bay, the sun vanished behind a curtain of smoke. Naples felt the eruption of Vesuvius. The earth trembled, the sea turned black with soot, and the wind carried whispers of disaster. But while Naples was spared the total destruction, the people who lived along the bay, those who watched the eruption unfold in real time, were deeply shaken. And thanks to one man, we have their voices echoing across the centuries. His name was Pliny the Younger. Just a teenager at the time, he watched the eruption from a coastal town near Naples, and years later he would write 2 letters to the historian Tacitus, describing in vivid detail the terror and confusion of that day. And one of the most haunting parts of this account isn't about falling ash or earthquakes. It's about his mother, and it goes like this. And I quote, "My mother, now besought, urged, even commanded me to make my escape, at any rate, which as I was young I might do easily. As for herself, she said her age and corpulency rendered all attempts of that sort impossible. However, she would willingly meet death if she could have the satisfaction of seeing that she was not the occasion of mine. But I absolutely refused to leave her, and taking her by the hand, compelled her to go with me. She complied with great reluctance, and not without many reproaches to herself for retarding my flight. The ashes now began to fall upon us, though not in great quantity. I looked back. A dense, dark mist seemed to be following us, spreading itself over the country like a cloud. "Let us turn out of the high road," I said, "while we can still see, for fear that should we fall in the road, we should be pressed to death in the dark by the crowds that are following us." We had scarcely sat down when night came upon us. Not such as we have when the sky is cloudy or when there is no moon, but that of a room when it is shut up and all the lights put out. You might hear the shrieks of women, the screams of children, the shouts of men, some calling for their children, others calling for their parents, and others for their husbands, and seeking to recognize each other by the voices that replied, one lamenting his own fate, another that of his family, some wishing to die from the very fear of dying, some lifting their hands to the gods, but the greater part convinced that there were now no gods at all, and that the final, endless night of which we have heard had come upon the world. End quote. Can you imagine? Can you just imagine ash falling like snow? Darkness so thick you couldn't see your hand, and your own mother telling you to leave her behind so that you might survive. And it's a first-hand account of the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Fortunately, they both did survive, but you can tell the trauma that stayed with him, and thanks to his words, we're reminded that this wasn't just a natural disaster. It was also a human disaster. And remember, for over 1,600 years, Pompeii was buried and forgotten. It was covered by ash, lost to history. Pompeii became a ghost city. People knew something that had once stood there. The locals called the area La Civita, the settlement. But the full story, the lives, the art, the tragedy, that was hidden beneath more than 20 feet of volcanic debris. And then in 1748, something remarkable happened. While digging foundations for a new palace, workers hit walls, color frescoes, mosaics, pottery, rooms, streets, and even bones. And just like that, Pompeii began to breathe again. Unlike other Roman ruins, which had been worn down by time, weather, and war, Pompeii was sealed in a tomb of ash. And that ash preserved everything, not just temples and statues, but moments, daily life, private life. In fact, Pompeii is called the most complete ancient city ever found. The exact death toll from the eruption is unknown, but archaeologists and historians estimate from around 2,000 to 16,000 people perished in that eruption. And archaeologists have unearthed the remains of about 1,150 people in Pompeii. The eruption also affected other settlements near Mount Vesuvius, where hundreds more are believed to have perished. And as the excavation continues, there are more glimpses into the lives of the people that perished that day. In 2017, one inscription was discovered etched on a tomb outside of Pompeii that has been translated by Massimo Osanna, Director General of the Archaeological Park of Pompeii. It tells a story of a young man's transition from boyhood to adulthood. It talks of how this occasion was marked with an extravagant party, a banquet fit for royalty, a feast for a staggering 6,840 guests, a gladiator show featuring over 400 fighters. And this inscription is more than just a historical record. It's a window into Roman society, at least Roman society in this case, for the very wealthy. Unfortunately, there were also those that were not wealthy or were enslaved. A small bakery equipped with windows blocked by iron bars has been uncovered. The remains of 3 people have been recovered from the structure. Markings on the floor of the bakery are thought to have directed the movement of those enslaved workers and animals that were likely blindfolded while grinding grain and baking bread in this space. The bakery's only exit led to the main hall of the luxurious residential section of the structure. The director of Pompeii's archaeological park said, "It is, in other words, a space in which we have to imagine the presence of people of servile status, whose freedom of movement the owner felt the need to restrict." Thanks to the tireless efforts of archaeologists, Pompeii is slowly emerging from its blanket of ash. These excavations have not only revealed the tragic story of the eruption, but also unveiled a lost world in remarkable detail. Pompeii today is a renowned archaeological site and a UNESCO World Heritage Site that draws millions of visitors from around the world each year. Let's now step back in time and explore the very buildings that once housed the lives of Pompeii's citizens. At the heart of Pompeii stood its Forum, the bustling open-air hub of civic, religious, and economic life. Originally laid out in the 4th century BCE during the Samnite period and later expanded under Roman rule, the Forum evolved into a grand rectangular plaza measuring roughly 165 yards long and 44 yards wide. Surrounded by colonnades and framed by temples, basilicas, and administrative buildings, it was more than just a marketplace. It was the city's nerve center. Here, citizens gathered to shop, worship, hold trials, conduct business, and engage in political life. With Mount Vesuvius rising in the distance, the Forum offered a dramatic backdrop that added to its powerful presence. The Forum was home to several key structures, including the Temple of Jupiter, the Basilica used for law courts and commerce, the Mausoleum, a market for meat and fish, and the Temple of Apollo, one of the oldest religious sites in Pompeii. As the city prospered under Roman influence, the Forum was embellished with statues of emperors and gods, marble pavements, and decorative fountains. It was the beating heart of Pompeii, a place where the city's soul was most visible. Today, even in the ruins, the Forum remains one of the most iconic and moving areas of the ancient city, offering a powerful glimpse into its vibrant past. The amphitheater of Pompeii is one of the oldest and best preserved Roman amphitheaters, offering significant insights into Roman entertainment, architecture, and social life. The amphitheater of Pompeii was built around 70 BC, making it one of the earliest stone amphitheaters in the Roman world. It predates the more famous Colosseum in Rome by over a century. Imagine, back then they built it to accommodate approximately 20,000 spectators, suggesting that it served not only the residents of Pompeii, but also those of neighboring towns. It measures almost 73 yards by 40 yards, and it features a central arena surrounded by tiered seating divided into 3 sections. The amphitheater's design included entrances and exits strategically placed to manage large crowds efficiently, as well as an awning system to provide shade for spectators. It would have hosted a variety of events, most notably games with gladiators, which were immensely popular among the Roman people. These games often involved combat between gladiators, as well as fights with wild animals. The amphitheater was also a venue for public executions and other forms of entertainment that showcased Roman power and the spectacle of violence. There's not another amphitheater that looks like this in the whole Roman world. There's one house that stands out among others, the House of Faun, and it's one of the largest and most impressive residential buildings in Pompeii at about 30,000 square feet. At its entrance is a mosaic that says hallway, which is Latin for the word that simply means welcome. This grand house, sprawling across an entire city block, was one of the largest and most luxurious homes in the city, a true symbol of wealth and status. Built in the 2nd century BC, the house gets its name from the bronze statue of a dancing faun found in the central atrium, a symbol of joy and celebration in Roman culture. But perhaps its most famous treasure was an exquisite mosaic depicting Alexander the Great in battle against Persian King Darius, a masterpiece of ancient art that now resides in the Naples Archaeological Museum. Walking through the House of Faun today, you get a sense of just how sophisticated life could be in ancient Pompeii. With elegant courtyards, intricate floor mosaics, and even private bathing areas, it reflected the opulence and artistic refinement of the Roman elite. It's not just a house, it's a snapshot of Roman domestic life at its grandest, and demonstrates the importance of social status and domestic comfort in Roman society. Pompeii changed what we know about the Roman world. It taught us things that no scroll or sculpture ever could. That Roman society had social classes, yes, but also neighborhoods, families, and businesses. That food was everywhere. They loved figs, olives, and bread. That gladiators were celebrities, and politics played out in wall graffiti, just like social media today. That they struggled with money, worshipped many gods, enjoyed luxuries, and loved to gossip. But most of all, it taught us that ancient people weren't all that different from us. They lived, they argued, they shopped, they danced, they dreamed. Even today, we're still uncovering new parts of Pompeii. In the past few years alone, we've uncovered a frescoed snack bar that was found with vivid paintings of food, A chariot was unearthed near the stables, believed to be used in ceremonial parades. Skeletons of people not found until now are being studied for clues, and districts of the city are still being excavated. In fact, more than 1/3 of the city remains unexcavated. And we're not done learning from this place. Every season brings something new, something heartbreaking, sometimes something funny. Sometimes it just reminds us of how human they were. I'm Maureen, and this is Legends and Lore, where history meets mystery. Sleep well, my friend.